It's week 7 of this Prismatic Draft League season. We are heading into the home stretch of the regular season with only 2 weeks remaining, and the Toronto Rockslide are sitting at 3-3, still with a relatively good tiebreaker for that position, though not as good as it was a week ago after a blowout loss last week. But definitely still able to make the playoffs, just have to not keep losing, and it can happen. The standings look like this now after week 6. There are 3 teams at the top of the standings at 5-1. 2 of them also tied on differential. That one's going to go down to the wire. We've played most of those teams near the top already, and again are sitting right in the middle with a bunch of teams gathered around us, definitely in position to strike if we're not careful. And I'm going to say right now, our 2 remaining matchups are against other teams that are right there in that middle area. In fact, this week, it is the very next team down. Granted, there are 3 different teams tied there, and in my table here, it's just by alphabetical order. But represented visually here as the very next team down, the Bashful Bisharps is the opponent for this week. So a very important one for the playoff chase, quite possibly. Now, there is a trade to cover before this matchup, and it is a little bit sort of haphazard here. I had to think about how I wanted to present this one, because the Bashful Bisharps have dropped Celesteela and picked up Heatran. And you might be thinking, what are you talking about? Heatran is on the Ontario Ogres. It can't have been available for the Bisharps to pick up. Well, the Ontario Ogres have also made a series of trades this week. They've really shaken up their roster. And I actually thought about covering that here just to explain why Heatran is available, but it's a lot, and at that point I'm doing a lot of the trade update in the Monday video, and I could just do that, but I don't really want to, so just take my word for now. Heatran is no longer an Ontario Ogre. It was available for this team, and so they picked it up and dropped Celesteela in the process. Heatran gives them a better fire type than Heatmor. It gives them some complementary typing and coverage to go with the powerful offensive modes that we've seen before with Tapu Koko, Arctozolt, and Pokemon like Terrakion. Gives him a tanky threat that makes this team a little bit more multi-dimensional, when this team so far this season has largely relied on Arctozolt to sweep and some other strong offensive Pokemon to pick up the pieces if Arctozolt falls short. Celesteela did put in a lot of work in week 6, but Heatran gives them a little bit more offensive punch and stab on those fire attacks. And obviously it's a very good mon. I'm sure they're happy to have it. The matchup now looks like this. The Bashful Bisharps, of course, have Tapu Koko, Alolan Ninetales, Scizor, Slowking, Alolan Sandslash, Arctozolt, Heatmor, Heatran, Terrakion, Arctovish, and Ponyard. So this is mainly a very powerful offensive Hail team. Ninetales sets up the Hail team, and then they have 3 very strong Slush Rush users in Sandslash, Arctozolt, and Arctovish. Although so far this season, they've been mostly just bringing Arctozolt out of those 3. We haven't seen much, if any, of the other 2, but Arctozolt has been coming week after week. Arctozolt, of course, has Bolt Beak, which is boosted in power if it goes first. So, well, if it moves before the target. So, very powerful combination with Slush Rush in Hail, as well as Electric and Ice just being very strong offensive coverage. Arctovish can do the same thing with Vicious Rend, but again, we've been seeing that a lot less often this season. Alolan Sandslash doesn't have a crazy powerful move like that. It's a little bit weaker in terms of damage output than the other 2, but it is also a little bit faster than the other 2, which might well matter against my team that relies in large part on high base speed stats to build an advantage over the opponent. I found when I was EVing this week, there were a number of situations where I could speed creep Arctozolt and Arctovish, but it was harder and not always worthwhile to speed creep Sandslash. So I'm not actually expecting to see Sandslash this week. It definitely could show up and cause me some trouble. Tapu Koko sets up Electric Terrain, which also powers up Arctozolt's Bolt Beak. No wonder they've been leaning so hard on Arctozolt throughout the season. It also just gives them more of that electric type coverage that's complementary with their various ice types. And then we've seen them mix and match some other Pokemon in the remaining slots. Terrakion is just a very strong offensive Pokemon that has shown up most weeks. Slowking gives them some bulk, a bit more special offense, and a Trick Room mode if they want it. Although since so many of their game plans focus on Tapu Koko, Ninetales, and Arctozolt outspeeding things, we haven't really ever seen much of a Trick Room mode from this team. But the option exists, especially with Heatran being more of a slower threat. Scizor can bullet punch through opposing ice types and also just hit things hard generally. I mean, that's largely how this team is. It's Arctozolt with a couple of supports. They could mix in Arctivish or Sandslash if they want, and then other strong attackers around it, and they now add Heatran to that group as well. I'm not really expecting to see Heat more Poniard, but you never know, it could happen. And in a way, the Celesteela for Heatran swap simplifies this matchup, but in another way, it makes it a little bit trickier. So for example, I'm not worried about Wide Guard because I don't think they have it anywhere on their team now that they've dropped Celesteela, unless I'm missing something. But on the other hand, I kind of thought Volcarona looked primed to sweep this team with a bit of setup, and Heatran is definitely going to make that more difficult. Volcarona could blast through Celesteela and the ice types and overwhelm Tapu Koko. Scissor's not doing much to it. Terrakion, could be handled. But Heatran kind of hard counters Volcarona, so the matchup's a little bit trickier for me in that way than I thought it was going to be. But we are not starting with Heatran this week because I have a different thought about what I want to start with for this week. By the way, it is a tough matchup, right? Because Arctozolt with some speed control kind of goes crazy into my team. In much the same way that I was worried about the East Coast Esper's Dracozolt, Arctozolt poses a lot of similar problems, and then it also has fast support pieces around it, and they can run some speed control with Ninetales, Icy Wind. I think Tapu Koko gets Electro Web. Anyway, I had a different thought going into this week. It's something that's been crossing my mind a few times after losses this season. And if you'll allow me a second to go off on a small tangent into another project I'm working on this channel, this is coming partly from my VGC Legends series where I spin a wheel, get a random legendary or mythical Pokemon, and build a team quickly around it to try out on the ladder. I always say in those videos, I've made 70 of them so far, not quite all released yet, with still several more to go. I always say that maybe by doing that, I learn some things as I try a bunch of different teams. And one lesson that I actually have taken away from that is that sometimes I find a really strong combo, a very powerful synergy to build around, but then I see things in the matchups that I get that scare me off of bringing it, even when it might still be very powerful and worthwhile. And so I'm trying to back down less often from scary things that I have because I can see what counters them and then I get scared off of bringing them. All that said, I drafted Blastoise with Shell Smash in mind. I want to see what Shell Smash Blastoise can do. It's Shell Smash Blastoise to start off this week. My opponent does have offensive threats into it, but their only water resists are Arctivish and Slowking. I'm not really expecting to see Arctivish. It could happen. I'm not really that afraid of Slowking. I think Blastoise just blasting through things is long overdue this week. Or this season, I should say. It shouldn't have taken me until week 7 to try this, most likely. But yeah, I want to get Blastoise set up and just start shooting. That's the goal here. So it's White Herb, Shell Smash, Blastoise. It has a bunch of speed investment because that way at +2, it's faster than Slush Rush boosted Arctozolt or Arctivish. But I don't need a Timid Nature for that, so I can't afford to run max special attack. And then I have the Gigantamax characteristic. I have Water Spout for an extra strong G-Max Cannonade, but also if Blastoise sets up and doesn't take any damage, it gets spread Water Spout at full power into my opponent's team, and they have very few water resists, and they got rid of their Wide Guard user. Muddy Water is a safer option if Water Spout is weakened, and then Protect to help keep Blastoise healthy. But that's the goal for this Pokemon this week, just set up and go. And I said if Blastoise gets set up and doesn't take any damage, how do I make that happen? I'm bringing Togepi this week. Togepi is my redirector of choice instead of Volcarona or Tangela because Volcarona has a different set and Tangela is weak to ice. I did still think about Tangela, but it also can't sleep powder things if my opponent sets up electric terrain. So into a bunch of ice types and Heatran and Tapu Koko, I don't think Tangela is all that valuable. Follow Me is better anyway because if they run safety goggles, that doesn't stop it. But yeah, that's why Togepi is here this week. It has the Eviolite. It is loaded up on physical bulk so that it can hopefully take a Bolt Beak or whatever physical ice attack Arctozolt gets very nicely. This is coming right after Usurbe Chadots in week 6 used Follow Me Clefable to tank a couple of Bolt Beaks. I had actually built this Togepi set before I watched that replay. I kind of hope the Bisharps don't have Follow Me on the brain now, although when they see a Togepi, I think it's pretty obvious what it does. Never mind that the Chadots lost that set anyway. But Togepi is here to click Follow Me, give Blastoise or Volcarona a turn to set up. And that's the main thing I need it for. Helping Hand can make the attackers hit that much harder. Life Dew can help keep Blastoise or Volcarona healthy if the circumstances are right. And I really thought about After You in the last move slot because they do have the Trick Room option with the Slowking that might be hard for me to shut down if they bring it. But again, I don't think a Trick Room mode is very likely here, and I don't like running a Pokemon with no attacks at all, so I might change my mind and switch to After You. That's like the one thing I'm still thinking about on this team, but I'm probably going to stick with Dazzling Gleam so that Togepi is capable of doing non-zero damage. Also, if Togepi didn't have an attack, all of its abilities would be useless, but with Dazzling Gleam, maybe I can get a Super Luck crit. Now, I still have one problem, right? Even if they bring Slowking, even if they don't set Trick Room, Blastoise is just not very threatening into it. And Blastoise is also not very threatening into Arctovish. So I need something to put pressure on those Pokemon. And once again, we're going back to basics. Something very powerful that I was thinking about all the way back in the draft and am a little bit surprised myself that I didn't actually bring until now. Choice Specs Regieleki. I thought about just running 4 electric attacks because I don't know that it necessarily needs anything else. But I do think Hyper Beam is of non-zero value here just for the coverage option into Tapu Koko and Arctozolt. My opponent does have electric resist. The neat thing about Tapu Koko is it sets up the electric terrain for me, so I can actually get a boost into it from that, but I might as well have the coverage option, or even the max strike option if I really need it. But I was thinking about Volt Switch in that last slot and just running 4 electric attacks. Anyway, Specs Regieleki is here to click whatever electric attack is most favorable. Thunderbolt does the most damage outside of electric terrain. Rising Voltage does the most damage inside electric terrain, which my opponent is likely to set up for me. And Electro Web gives me a bit of speed control, so I can compete with Pokemon like Ninetales on the opponent's side if they're going for speed control themselves. Just clicking Specs Electro Web next to a strong attacker like Blastoise might well win games by itself. I have had that experience on the competitive ladder back when Sword and Shield was current gen. So I feel pretty good with this set, and also I don't think my opponent is a fake out user unless I missed something. So yeah, overall Regieleki should be able to just outspeed anything. I think this one's even creeping Alolan Sandslash. I think I had a Modest Nature penciled in at first, and I switched to Timid to creep Alolan Sandslash. So I don't think anything is stopping that Electro Web. Now they've also gotten rid of Celesteela once again and Wide Guard with it. And that can create all kinds of openings for the other attackers to do big damage as well. I keep talking about the Volcarona. It is here. It is an alternative setup option besides the Blastoise. I am running Quiver Dance. I'm not running bulky Quiver Dance like I usually do. Usually I just load up on bulk with Quiver Dance, and that was my first instinct with these EVs this time. But I'm not running leftovers on this Volcarona because my opponent has a few bits of stray rock coverage they could throw at me. Terrakion is not even the main thing because obviously you can see a rock type attack coming from that, and actually this Volcarona set, even with the Charty Berry, is not guaranteed to survive a Terrakion rock slide. It has a chance, but it's not guaranteed. But I don't want to run into something like Rock Tomb Arctozolt and get surprised by that, so I figured the Charty Berry was worthwhile anyway. Flame Body is kind of nice because I can burn Arctozolt on a Bolt Beak, or sack Volcarona, burn Arctovish on a Vicious Rend, maybe if things are really not working out well. But Volcarona is still valuable into some of their Pokemon, like Sandslash, which is pretty much just walled by it. Tapu Koko, which doesn't really like having to deal with the special defense boost from Quiver Dance. Ninetales is pretty much walled by Volcarona, so even with Heatran on the other side, I do think Volcarona is worth bringing, even though I don't think it dominates the matchup quite like it would have if they still had Celesteela. And I did switch to a more offensive EV spread after initially penciling in a super bulky one. I believe this spread outspeeds Arctozolt and Arctovish in Hail at +1, so after a Quiver Dance. And also the 252 special attack EVs are pretty... I don't remember the specifics, but they get me in or near KO range after a Quiver Dance into some of the opponent's Pokemon with... I think mostly they're Giga Drain calcs. Like, they give Giga Drain a chance to KO Arctovish, Terrakion. It does a lot to Slowking. Not sure all of these are KOs, but they're at least they at least have a chance if the rolls are right. I don't remember the specific calcs, but I remember checking a bunch and thinking, yeah, this looked worthwhile. Up next, what Pokemon is next? I'm trying to remember. Oh yeah, of course, the Pokemon that's shown up every single week so far this season, Choice Band Zygarde with my 4 attacks of choice, ready to just fire off big damage. 1,000 Arrows is not really necessary this week because with Celesteela gone, my opponent doesn't have a ground immunity, but I brought it anyway just to cover for Air Balloon Heatran. The Ontario Ogres were using Air Balloon fairly often with that Pokemon. I could see the Bisharps doing it as well. Otherwise, I think 1,000 Waves is a little bit preferable. so that the trapping effect can just restrict the opponent's options. I don't have a specific plan for it, but it could come in handy at some point. And with my opponent not having any ground resist, I think, I wasn't too bothered about what the other 2 attacks would be, but I figured the best I can do here are Rock Slide, just for the option of max Rockfall. I don't think it's likely that I Dynamax Zygarde, but if I do for some reason, then I can change the weather with that. And Brick Break can break through Aurora Veil set up by Alolan Ninetales. That said, I'm probably just almost always clicking 1000 Waves with this Pokemon, and considering all the ice types that my opponent has, I don't know how likely it is for sure that I even bring it to a game, but Hail won't necessarily always be up. It's very threatening into Arctozolt outside of Hail. It's very threatening into Tapu Koko. I think it does enough here to be worth bringing. And one last note about this Pokemon, I'm kidding. It's not Choice Band Zygarde for the first time all season. That item is not an error right there. It is Choice Scarf Zygarde. Wildly different, I know. Dramatic departure from what I've been doing so far. I wanted it to outspeed Tapu Koko. It needs the Scarf to guarantee that, but then with the Scarf, it doesn't need EVs to outspeed Tapu Koko, so I was able to dump EVs into HP instead of speed, and run an Adamant Nature. It is still Choice Zygarde. This time it's a Scarf. It scares Tapu Koko. I don't know how much else it does in this matchup, but again, my opponent doesn't have a ground resist, so I figure a faster than expected Zygarde is worth a shot. And finally, a Pokemon that I've had some trouble using all season. Well, that was a little bit unlucky last week, and that is so good in this matchup that it's hard to ignore anyway. Mienshao is here. I thought about just bringing back the Scarf Mienshao from last week, obviously, or with a different set, but a Scarf Mienshao again. Obviously, I ended up choosing to give the Scarf to Zygarde instead. So I have the Roselli Berry so that Mienshao can take a Fairy-type hit from Ninetales or Tapu Koko. But instead, I've gone in more of a support direction with this set. I'll be honest, I don't remember what I'm speed creeping. I'll have to check before we play. But yeah, this should create some openings for teammates with Fake Out, which is another way to enable a Shell Smash from Blastoise or Quiver from Volcarona if for some reason Togepi is not available. Or just create openings for them to attack. I have Close Combat to threaten the Ice types and Terrakion. It's general, and Heatran. It's a very strong attack into a lot of my opponent's team. Especially Air Balloon Heatran, still weak to fighting. I have Wide Guard to stop Blizzard or Icy Wind from Ninetales, or Dazzling Gleam from Tapu Koko in some positions. Any of that could be valuable to protect my teammates from. And then I have Ally Switch, which is another way to prevent the opponent from landing a hit on Blastoise or Volcarona, or even Regieleki, or even Zygarde on a key turn. So it was all-out offense Mienshao last week. I have gone in more of a support direction this time. I think there's room for it. There's not a ton of support on the rest of the team. The goal is mainly use Togepi to create setup opportunities for Blastoise or Volcarona. Pair whichever one of those it is with Regieleki. Regieleki can keep the opponent's speed in check, or just throw off a big boosted Rising Voltage in the opponent's electric terrain, and try to overwhelm with Aleki Blastoise or Aleki Volcarona, again, enabled by Togepi. But I do have the Zygarde as a way to scare off mainly the electric types and Terrakion, and I do have the Mienshao to give some support and fish for some favorable matchups with close combat damage as well. Going back to basics here, bringing a couple of ideas that I've been thinking about since the draft and probably should have tried out at some point sooner. And this will be yet another interesting test of how well this team holds up against a tough opponent, as we still need another win or two to be comfortable chasing down a playoff spot. So let's go to the battles and let's see how things turn out. Okay, this one will definitely be late because we're playing at the time it's supposed to go up. Rough scheduling this time, but we're here now. Good luck, have fun. Ninetales, Arctozolt, Scizor, Heatran, Arctovish, they brought both, and Slowking. When have they brought Arctovish before? I definitely was focused more on the Arctozolt based on what I'd seen earlier in the season. Well, there's no electric resist. That's not true, there's Arctozolt. There's one electric resist. There's also, they also brought both of their water resists. Okay, that actually makes a lot of sense into my team, and is a little bit of a problem to deal with. But Specs Regieleki should go crazy with Blastoise. Let's stick to the plan for game one. Blastoise, Togepi, Aleki. And I could bring Volcarona. Volcarona's very good into their ice stuff. They do have the Heatran. They do also have the Arctovish. Let's bring Scarf Zygarde for game 1. Okay, Slowking Heatran. Not really what I want to see, because they could set Trick Room right now. And that is actually pretty hard to deal with. However, I'm just going to stick to the plan. We'll see what happens. Shell Smash. Follow me. Togepi is loaded up on Physical Bulk because the Arc Result was the obvious thing to be afraid of. Might kind of backfire on it here against the special Steel type, but we'll see. But I think I might be able to get, even if they set Trick Room, I might be able to get through the turns. If that turns out to be a big problem, then I'm going to have some questions to try to answer in game 2. But for now, we'll see how this goes. Okay, got the boosts, got the White Herb. It is just Flash Cannon one-shotting Togepi, and it's Trick Room. Okay. Actually, there's a problem. These are both choice. They can't protect. I think Blastoise might be able to get through the Trick Room turns, but... I actually think my best play here might be to Dynamax the Regieleki and just rely on Muddy Water for Blastoise damage. Because that can keep Regieleki around longer than like one turn. They didn't bring Tapu Koko, by the way. Yeah, the Trick Room going up is actually pretty bad, despite what I said earlier. But I think I'm gonna try that. I'm gonna go aggressive because Blastoise is my only remaining Pokemon that can protect. I'm just gonna click Muddy Water. Blastoise will probably take damage. Water Spout probably not worth it, and I will go straight for Max Lightning off of Rising Voltage into Slowking. Heatran Dynamaxes. Uh-oh. It's their Muddy Water first. Gets an accuracy drop into Regieleki, which is okay for now. Max Overgrowth actually just knocks out Blastoise. That's off of Solar Beam, I'm guessing. Okay, and they all have a Wakan Berry on Slowking. Okay, they just completely got me this game. I don't know... Probably have to lead Regieleki in game 2, so I can pressure the Slowking immediately. In fact, Regieleki Zygarde might be a good game 2 lead. Does that lose to Ninetales Arc Result? Maybe. Okay, whatever I click on Zygarde, it's locked into for the rest of the game. Also, this game is looking pretty clearly like a loss anyway. Let's just go with 1000 Waves. And... Max Lightning into Slowking again. Slowking will probably show an Ice-type attack or something to hit Zygarde. Well, we'll play this out because you're not allowed to forfeit in this league, and also maybe there's some more information to be gotten. Yeah, there's the Ice Beam. And Max Flare into Aleki. Doesn't quite KO, but very close. We're not getting through the Trick Room. Not having enough Protects really blows up on me here. Okay. Arc Result is third Pokemon. Okay, game 2. I think I just have to deny the Trick Room if I can, right? Oh, but they have the Wakan Berry on Slowking, which is... Wakan Berry on Slowking means I can't just nuke it with Regieleki. I don't know how I win this one. Maybe I need a Volcarona game plan in game 2. If I lead Aleki, Volcarona, that gives me something for everything they can throw at me. If I see the Slowking again, do I max Lightning or do I like Thunderbolt, max Overgrowth? Something like that. I think this is the best lead to keep the Slowking in check, and also there's probably nothing that it hard loses to. Ninetales Arc Result could be a little weird. I'll bring Togepi again, I think, because that's one of my best answers to their Trick Room stuff. Mienshau's not that good here. Zygarde is really bad. I'll bring Blastoise again. Zygarde is really bad in Trick Room. Okay, it's Heatran Slowking again. I'm glad this is a more offensive Volcarona this time. I think I do just... It's really awkward to use my Dynamax on this, but Given that Max Lightning does only half the Slowking through the Wakanberry, I think this is my best bet. And that means I lock Regieleki into Thunderbolt. So be it. Might get a chance to switch it out. Slowking just protects this turn. Well, let's see what this does through the Protect. It is some damage. It's not much damage. Heatwave from Heatran misses Alecki and crits Volcarona. Real mixed bag there. The problem is, I feel like I have to just keep attacking the Slowking, but I can just switch out now. Although, there's nobody on their team that very safely switches in on this combination of attacks. Scizor is probably the best bet. But that's one thing I like about this lead, that nobody wants to come in on this. Ninetales could do okay, because I'm not clicking a fire attack, but it would still take a bunch coming in. But yeah, being under so much pressure from the Slowking that I can't let it have a free turn is a serious problem. I'm already thinking, if I make it to Game 3, maybe I want to take a different approach. Maybe Quiver Dance Volcarona can work even though they set Trick Room. I think there's probably a game plan that can be built around that. Although that's where this being an offensive Volcarona, not a bulky one this time, could backfire. They're taking some time with this. Maybe they have a tough decision here too. Heatran Dynamaxes. Up the Wakanberry, that still does 50. It has, of course, the choice specs active this time. We do deny the Trick Room. Trade Regieleki for it. Don't love that. Didn't bring Zygarde this time to threaten the Heatran. They also have the Arctovish here. They can get their Snow Warning Slush Rush online if they want. They could just be fast and click Vicious Rend into Volcarona. I'm gonna max Overgrowth Arctovish and protect Blastoise, looking to avoid Heatran max Overgrowth at least for this turn. They let Arctovish actually be slower than Volcarona. This is a fast Volcarona, but also Arctovish is just very slow if it doesn't have the Hail. But then they have Arctozolt in the back. They might have just hard committed to the Trick Room game plan. Now the awkward thing here is if I click Heat Wave into Dracozolt, I'm also boosting Heatran. But I think it's... Is it worth it? I think it's worth it. Actually... Yeah. Or I can Quiver Dance. Or I can protect Volcarona. I think I'm switching Blastoise out to Togepi here because I want Blastoise to beat Heatran in the endgame, but I have to get rid of Arctozolt first. The question is, how do I do it? I'm just gonna go for the Heat Wave. Ah! I misclicked! Well, Water Spout KOs the Arctozolt. But I completely unnecessarily lose Blastoise to a Bloom Doom. Max Overgrowth. Bloom Doom is the Z move. Someday I'll learn not to use a trackpad for this. I double-clicked. I said that I was going to switch Togepi in that turn. That is fully what I intended to do. It might still be possible to win, because Heatran might not have great damage into Volcarona either, though I have gifted it a Flash Fire boost. And I don't have Grassy Terrain anymore after this turn. But, I mean, this is all I can do now. Crit Togepi. Could have gotten another Life Dew if not for that. Let's kill one of their power points. It's going to do too much damage now that it's single target, right? And that does nothing back. Wow, really bad week in this league. Yeah. GG's anyway to the Bashful Bisharps. Definitely going to use a mouse for week 8. Really, agreed to an extension and everything just for this. Oh well, it happens. 3 and 4. Can still make the playoffs with a win next week. This week, really. A win in next week's video. We'll just have to see what happens. But, GG's to the Bisharps, and, of course, more PDL to come.